Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show, presented by Hugh Hattrick. Here at Bathurst in the Forest, my very special guest, Basic Ollie, Rascal, Rabbit, Josh Martin. It's great to have you back on the show. Drive fast and try not to crash. Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. And boy, oh boy, do we have a special guest for you tonight. It is a chap who's been in the chat for a long time, for many months. And this time he said he would like to come on the show. It is, of course, Mike Rogers Racing.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
It's great to see you and have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Pleasure. I'm very well, thank you.
Now, we always start with a question for every guest that comes on the show. But you've been racing for quite some time and giving us lots of tips on how to get things set up. But how did your racing and sim racing career start? And were you always interested in gaming? But what was your history?
I do not have any history in gaming whatsoever. My brother-in-law bought a PS4 about 2 years ago. My fiance bought Gran Turismo, and obviously being a motor racing enthusiast, I thought, I'll give that a go. And it just went from there, really. Started off playing GT, a little bit of Formula One, and moved on to ACC eventually. So I've not been playing very long. I'm very new to it. The computer I had before a PlayStation 4 was actually an Atari ST. So you're talking late 80s, early 90s. So never been much of a gamer, but I'm certainly making up for it in my later years.
Yeah. So what was it like? I mean, if you've never done anything like that before, and then you discover Gran Turismo and things like that, what was your kind of first impressions of racing games?
I was a bit shocked, actually, because of the realism and just how true to life the tracks were. Obviously, I'd never heard of laser scan tracks before. So yeah, I was quite blown away with it at first. Obviously the fake tracks, not so much, although they were still very much fun to play. But Suzuka and Spa and some of the other tracks on GT were, just amazing. Just blew me away, really.
Yeah. No, it's quite a thing, because I mean, there's so much that's happened in the last 20 years of gaming and the kind of realism that has come about. That it really does. I mean, that's why you could play these games for hours and hours and hours. And we'll get to your Assetto Corsa accomplishments in a few minutes' time. I'd like to welcome as well all our guests who are on the chat. You've got lots of your friends who are in tonight, and my goodness me, they have been making lots and lots of hilarious comments.
Okay,
so I will get to that. Most of them, I think, are complimentary to you, Mike. But we'll have to maybe check a few. But I'm sure we'll get down to that in a few minutes' time. So what, in terms of your games just now, are your kind of favourite games and also your favourite combinations?
Obviously, Assetto Corsa Competizione, definitely my go-to game at the moment. It's the only game I actually have at the moment. I've just made transition from the PlayStation to PC. So I only have that game. At the moment, not particularly interested in any other game. Thought about maybe getting iRacing. Possibly, we'll see. And favourite combinations at the moment, definitely Spa. Silverstone in the McLaren 720S is one of my favourites. Kialami, a bit of a Kialami specialist. Well, I was on the PlayStation, a little bit slower on the PC. What else? And the new DLC, the British GT pack, Donington, Snetterton, Alton Park. I can definitely see those getting played quite frequently in the weeks to come.
So what is, in terms of like the British DLC pack, does that give you a new formula in it, or is it just the same as GT3 and GT4?
I think it's same as GT3, GT4. I've not looked into it in a great deal of depth yet. I know there's a ton of new liveries, if you're bothered about liveries, which I'm not really. And yeah, it's just the three new tracks, I think. Not very well researched on the topic yet, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but yeah, no, because that's quite a thing. So that will give you plenty of time. You'll be wanting to race around those tracks
Yeah.
and get to know them. So what was it then that made you change from going from Gran Turismo to Assetto Corsa and going from console to PC?
This is going to come as quite a shock to everybody, but the penalty system.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, you had enough. You'd had enough.
I just found every week I'd be waiting for the new daily races to be announced, and rather than looking forward to what was coming, I'd be looking forward with some kind of trepidation as to what were the more risky combinations. And say, for example, if Monza came up, which it does quite frequently on Gran Turismo, obviously I'm trying to build my driver rating and my sportsmanship rating, and I didn't really feel like I could take much of a risk. I felt like if I tried Monza 5 or 6 times, I could end up back down to 3,000 DR. So yeah, I just got fed up with. I mean, I don't claim to be the best driver or the fastest driver, but I try to be as clean as possible. I try to give people a lot of respect, but obviously we all know the problems with the penalty system. Someone can shunt you from the back and you'll end up catching a penalty for that. And I would tend to shy away a lot from playing the daily races. Time trialing I love. I know a lot of people aren't very, very keen on time trialing, but I do really enjoy the time trialing. But that's not what I bought the game for. I bought the game to race. And even when I managed to get to A rank, the races didn't get much cleaner, and the penalty system just seemed to be getting worse and worse. I had bought ACC for the PS4 in June of last year. Got it on the day of release. Looked fantastic. Watched it on quite a few streams. Really liked the look of the game and the sound of the game. But was left a little bit wanting once I'd uploaded it onto my PlayStation. The graphics obviously took a bit of a hit. I was on a controller as well at the time, and it was very, very difficult. So I did leave it alone for quite a while, a couple of months. But I'd say August, September last year, started to get really bored of Gran Turismo and thought, you know what, I'm going to try and get my track medals for ACC. By that time, I bought the T300. And it just went from there, really. Once I'd done all my track medals, the rest is history. I was completely hooked. At first, the setup side of things didn't interest me a lot. I thought it was a bit geeky, but eventually got quite sucked in with it because obviously the more I learned about the game, the more I was learning about one of my hobbies, motor racing, learning more about the cars, learning more about the tracks. So yeah, it just went from there, really.
Yeah, oh, no, that's fantastic because it's certainly quite different. I mean, I completely share your understanding of the penalty system on GT Sport, and that trepidation you have of thinking, oh, what's going to come and what are the tracks going to be like. You know, I mean, I love Group 4, and I'm normally reasonable at Group 4, and I like Group 3 to an extent as well. But if I can get a good Group 4 track like Group 4 at Brands Hatch, I'll really quite enjoy that. I think that'll be quite a fun race. But you do wonder. I mean, it's like this week's races. I know Daily Race A was an absolute massacre. It was really difficult. I didn't even try to race B at Group 3 at I think is it Kami, the Japanese track. I won't even try and pronounce that one. And then it was at Yagimawa or something. I never get it right.
Yes, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
And then there was the Daily Race C at Suzuka, and I thought that might be better because it's the Formula X things or whatever they are, the super Formula, and they're quite fun. I quite enjoy driving them. But even it's just other people's someone could spin in front of you at the hairpin, and they've ghosted out. But obviously you go through their line, but there's nowhere for you to go because there's already somebody next to you. And then you get like a 4-second penalty because it assumes that you've kind of put them off. So it's it can be quite frustrating when it's like that. But and I think in ACC it's a different way of driving the car, isn't it? It's quite a different approach you have to take.
Not so much of a severe penalty for making contact with people. Obviously, when you're qualifying and you leave the track limits, you get an invalidated lap instead of a 1-second penalty. And that used to really annoy me on Gran Turismo because you would either have to drive a whole nother lap, serve your penalty, and then restart again, or just restart and then start the lap afresh, which kind of breaks up the rhythm sometimes. So I think ACC have got it right. It's not perfect, but it's definitely well, I love it anyway.
Yeah, I think if you hit somebody as well in ACC, you tend to come off worse. It's quite good. It's a real thump and a thud. Even going over the curbs can cause lots of problems.
Absolutely, more realism. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like it. I do like it. Now we better get to some of these questions because they've been building up. With I can't believe how many hundreds of comments we've had since things were starting. Even before you came on board, they were writing the comments. And to give you a taste of all your friends here, Sean was one of the first to come on the chat, and he said, "My first question is, who's Mike Rogers?" And so it was there. So yeah, that's who he is. And he says, "Your next question is, why does he live where he is and not in a posh area like I do?"
I've never lived in a posh area, Sean. I mean, the area I live in at the moment's quite nice, actually. But I met my fiance 3 years ago, and she lives in East London, stroke Essex. So I moved here, and I don't miss South London at all.
Oh, that's the thing. Now we've got some very good questions here. One is from McGann 46 GT. It says, "Mike, have you walked the dog?"
The dog was walked this afternoon in -3-degree weather, so he is now asleep downstairs in his bed. I was kind of hoping he'd come up and make a guest appearance, but I don't think that's going to happen. So maybe next time.
That's fine. Now here we go. I'll ask you some more questions that are actually sim related. You'll be relieved to hear, and it comes from Mew 79, one of the fastest out there on GT Sports and more. He's asked you, what is your favourite track on ACC?
Ooh, I would have to say Kyalami. For those that know me and talk to me every day, that probably doesn't come as much of a surprise. But I really found some pace at Kyalami on the PS4. Not so fast on the PC, but I'm working on it. So yeah, definitely Kyalami, possibly Spa a close second, and I think Donington might come a close third now. Actually,
it's a good track, isn't it? That's where I saw the Senna win the European Grand Prix. And that was an amazing circuit. Because of that, they used the full circuit for that on that day way back in April '93. And that was quite a thing.
Was that the race where he set that stunning opening lap and overtook 4 or 5 people on the first lap?
Yeah, he started, I think it was like 5th on the grid or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was 3rd or 4th on the grid. And when he got to the first corner, he was blocked and he was going to put down to 5th. And then from then on, by the end of that lap, he was first.
Yeah,
he just overtook everybody.
Incredible.
The first few corners, he went past Andretti, and then it was Damon Hill, and then he caught up to Prost on the back straight. And then, as you know, it was on the Donington Loop at the very far end. We watched him go past, and Prost was still leading. And then as they came up over the hill, Senna had gotten into the lead, and then that was it. He was away from there.
And it was in the wet as well, if I remember.
Yep, it was wet and dry. It was drizzling. It had been a horrendous weekend of weather, and they ran out of tires. Prost came in, and they didn't know what tires to give him because they had simply run out of the number of tires. And he also stalled in the pit lane as well. So it was in the days when that happened. So it was the most incredible experience to see it all. And they had the V12 Ferraris, you had the V8 Fords, and you had the V10 Renaults, and traction control that crackled as they accelerated away. It was a phenomenal era, really.
Absolutely. My favourite Formula One era, the Senna years. One of my childhood heroes, Ayrton Senna.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? If we slightly digress, because obviously I know you're a big Formula One fan, and that was like Wumble Leader last night when you've watched that era, and even I think Lewis Hamilton talks a little bit about it when he was saying that when he used to watch the Senna videos. But we watched Senna videos, we watched Mansell videos, and they really let you in on their feelings and the real feelings of what it was like. That's and they don't really do that now. It's very much
too many corporate answers these days.
Yeah, it's all thanks to the team, and
which is why I used to like Mark Webber, because even though Mark Webber had to abide by the same rules as everybody else, he was still very honest and outspoken. So I always had a lot of respect for for the Aussie grit.
Yes, yeah, no, that was the thing, isn't it? It was, it was, and it's good to get drivers like that. In a way, I think Sebastian Vettel is a bit more like that now. He'll kind of say more what he feels rather than actually be supposed to say, which I quite like. Do you have a particular favourite at the moment in Formula One?
That's a no-brainer, really. It's got to be Lewis, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, he has done a terrific job, and you can't take away his skills on the racetrack, that's for sure. And he just keeps on going. What do you think of the current engines and things like that in Formula One?
I went to Silverstone a couple of years ago. They're still magnificent to watch, but they're too quiet. I'd like to see a return to the real noise. I mean, when my dad used to take us to Brands Hatch and we were kids, we'd be wearing ear defenders, so because it was just so loud. And I'd love to see it. I mean, I don't know a great deal about the cars at the moment. I've got to admit to you, I've fallen out of love with Formula One a little bit the last couple of years. It's with the exception of maybe Monza last year when Pierre Gasly won. It's kind of.
I know what you mean. It has lost a bit of its still. I think because it's become very politically correct, and I think for a lot of our era doesn't give two rips about that, and we just we like the build up. I always remember it was funny because even Murray Walker in his 80s would get distracted by the pit girls when they were next to a racing driver. He couldn't resist making a comment here and there, and it was great, because it was funny and it was much more of a laugh, But nowadays you don't get that. You're not allowed to pit girls. You're not allowed. Everything's they're going to take a knee for this, that, and the next thing, and make some kind of political statement at it all. But I kind of feel that has really put a lot of people off. Certainly my generation.
Yeah, they've kind of dialed down the fun to a certain degree, which is, I mean, come on, sport's supposed to be fun. I mean, I mean, I could possibly handle there not being grid girls. I mean, but I get what you're saying. They have turned down the fun and the honesty and the passion. And I mean, you could replace Lewis Hamilton with Bottas or anyone else on the grid, and they would answer the question in the very same way, which is a shame, because I'm sure underneath that corporate shell, they've probably got very interesting personalities. Well, at least I hope they would anyway.
Yeah, you better.
You never know, do you?
Meeting your heroes at the day of decline, isn't it? But that is the kind of thing. I always laugh and think, if James Hunt was commentating today, you can imagine how he would have reacted to some of these things, it needs a bit of fun and a bit more kind of stuff. There was actually a headline today saying they're planning on maybe doing some kind of sprint race on a Saturday with Formula One. So I haven't seen all the details about that yet. But no, that might be an interesting way, because it'd be quite nice to get a fuller weekend of action.
I skim read that article quickly, and the first thought that came into my mind was, do you remember when they changed the qualifying format a few years ago in Australia, and it lasted for one race? Yeah, I don't know why, but that popped into my head.
I don't know. It might just, isn't it? You don't want gimmicks. You want it to be a proper race and make it work.
I think the F1 format at the moment, the weekend format, is fine the way it is. I wish they'd just stop fiddling with it, like the practice sessions on a Friday, the practice and the qualifying on a Saturday, and the race on the Sunday. I mean, if you go to the races, you get all the support races as well. Why change it? I mean, I think it's probably liberty. They want to try and make it a little different. They want to try and push it out to more people, maybe, but just concentrate on your core audience, really, and put it back on terrestrial television, please.
It's got to be live.
Please.
Yes. I think that's the thing, so that people, not just the highlights, but for the whole thing. I think that was a mistake when they sold it to Sky, to give them all the rights, and certainly in the UK, it meant it was really hard for other folk, and it also meant you had to pay the money to get it, which was a wee bit much. I mean, I would have Sky Sports. I mean, not to stop talking about my TV packages, I would have Sky Sports F1 if I could just have that on its own, if I didn't have to have the rest of the sports package in with it as well, because I don't want to watch 24 hours of golf or stuff like that on TV, but I managed to get that, to be fair, just F1.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Because I got it, because at first they did a deal when it first changed over.
Right.
Just get the F1 on Sky, So I begrudgingly got the Skybox, and there's a good story of that because I used to live in a council estate in Glasgow when we first got married, and they put this new cladding onto it, and so I phoned up Sky and said, right, I need to get the Sky dish in for the first Grand Prix, and it was in Australia, early on a Sunday morning. And they said, "Yep, no, we'll come on the Friday. It'll all be done and dusted." And everyone in the whole street had a Sky dish. And the guy came along and he said to me, "I'm really sorry, I can't install your Sky dish because you've got cladding on your house, and you're gonna have to go to the council and get permission." And I went, "No!" It's like the only one that doesn't have a Sky dish in Glasgow, But so that was it. So I had to watch it on somebody else's computer to be able to see it. But eventually they got it sorted. But no, it's a bit more restrictive only having it on Sky. I mean, I know they do the highlights on Channel 4, but also the commentary. It's changed as well the way they view the screens. I mean, I know my co-host Andrew Marr always complains that they don't really watch a lot of the racing. They tend to go off on a tangent or kind of miss quite a lot. And I think Brundle is an excellent commentator.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Crofty,
I'm not sold on yet. I like him. I like his passion. But I'm not sold on David Croft. I think maybe someone's going to kill me for saying this, but maybe you should stick to the darts.
He does do darts, doesn't he? That's right.
Yeah, I would take a 95-year-old Murray Walker over David Croft any day of the week.
Yeah,
or David Coulthard and Brundle would be fantastic. Yeah,
they were brilliant. I think that was a classic time when I think it was 2010 or 2011. Thereabouts when it was Brundle and Coulthard for BBC, and they were, I think, the best years of the F1 coverage because they were two really, really good commentators, and they got on so well, and they kind of worked out. I think David Croft and Brundle get on well, but I just don't know. It doesn't quite kind of work. I mean, it's better than having James Allen, but it's slightly different. Now I know both of them are now never ever going to come on the show, but. We'll see. But now Mew79 is saying Brundle and Ben Edwards would be a much better commentating pair. That would be an interesting one actually, because Ben Edwards does quite a lot for the other formulas. But
Ben Edwards as a leading commentator, again, not massively sold. I mean, I come from the era of Murray and James Hunt, so not to live up to. I still stick to Martin Brundle, lead commentator, or David Coulthard, lead Brundle. With Ted Kravitz in the pits.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Ted.
Yeah, Ted's really good. It's been annoying because they've tried to push him out a bit over the last year, and they had Karen Chandok, I think it was, who does a lot. I mean, he's okay, but I don't think he's still got the same. He doesn't have that same likability as what Ted has been able to build over the years. And I think when you get Ted's notebook, it's really quite good. I'd love to watch that live actually to stay in grandstand, watch him do his stuff. I think he would be really good with that. Now, Stephen Scott has said Murray was even better towards the end as he kept getting stuff wrong.
That's why we loved him.
But I always remember there was a time not long after James Hunt passed away, and Jonathan Palmer stepped in to be a commentator for a year or two alongside Murray Walker. And I remember, I think it was in the Argentinian Grand Prix or something like that. And he had said he'd almost tried to outsmart Murray and say, "Oh, you got that one wrong, Murray. I'll have to correct you on that." And then, of course, Jonathan walked straight into a trap and setting himself up, made a mistake. And Murray just laughed, saying, "Well, I wouldn't want to have to correct you, Jonathan, but you got that one wrong." It was like, because everyone was on Murray's side. I think
everyone. I had the pleasure of meeting Murray Walker in the Isle of Man when I was very young, and I wanted him to be my granddad. Loved him.
No, an amazing character, and I think that's what makes the sport so good. There's so many of these kind of incredible characters that go through Formula One that it is really something. But as we digress back to sim racing, what do you think it is that makes sim racing so attractive at the moment? Obviously you're a passionate racing fan. What is it that drives you to play these games?
Love of motorsport, really. Obviously, lockdown has helped. I'm clinically vulnerable, so I haven't left the house much for the last year. So obviously, not being able to work in the office and not being able to go anywhere, take the fiance to the cinema or whatnot, you know, so it definitely does fill a void there. But saying that, the games are fantastic. Even Gran Turismo, I would recommend somebody if you're into racing, and your childhood dream was to race a car and it never quite happened, get into sim racing, man. You know, it's a fantastic way. I mean, I've met so many great people as well over the last year, from all over the world. Same passion, everybody gets on. It's not political, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a really nice place to be, and it's helped me a hell of a lot the last year, because obviously with COVID and not being able to go anywhere and practically being imprisoned in my own home, it's just fantastic. I'm glad that my fiance bought Gran Turismo for the PlayStation, because it's definitely helped me
to keep you sane, isn't it? That's the thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And was there a car when you first say drove Gran Turismo, or maybe even on a Assetto Corsa, that said, "Oh, I've always wanted to have a go in one of those. I wonder what this is going to be like." I know when you're maybe doing time trial and things like that. Was there anything that really kind of made you think, "Oh, this is just fantastic"?
Gran Turismo, I always liked the R8. It was very tricky to drive. The Porsche 911 as well, or 991, I think it is in Gran Turismo, Group 3. Assetto Corsa, it's got to be the Ferrari 488 GT3 and the Evo. Unbelievable car to drive. What other cars in Gran Turismo are good? The Super Formula cars as well, I quite enjoy. I don't like a lot of the high downforce races in Gran Turismo, because obviously the higher up the tiers go, the harsher the penalties get. So you've only got, I mean, it's quite easy to knock into someone driving a Super Formula car around Suzuka than it is driving a GT3 car. So, but Super Formula is definitely one of my favourites, unless Esteban Ocon is driving as well. But yeah, definitely the Ferrari, the 488 GT3 Evo in ACC is phenomenal. It sounds amazing, and if you've got the right setup, it flies, you know.
I loved it when I first tried Assetto Corsa. I loved the Alfa Romeo 155, the touring car version of that.
Okay.
And it's just because it sounded as it does in real life, and I've always wanted to drive one of those. And I thought, and then I took it like to Imola and then Brands Hatch, and I just did a race by myself on the against the AI. It was just great fun, because it was all Alfa Romeos. It was kind of like my dream combination. Although they're so unreliable, I'm amazed any of them actually started. But you know, you can imagine them on the grid and nothing actually goes forward as of that. But no, they were great fun, and if you can get a car that you really have a kind of passion for, it is quite fun. So if you're a Porsche fan or something similar, isn't it? There's lots of good cars.
Yeah. The Porsche, I'd recommend the Porsche, the Group 3 Porsche, to anyone new to the game. It's quite an easy car to get the hang of. If you're gonna, I mean, you know, don't choose the Huracan or the R8, because they're an absolute nightmare, and they'll put you off the game before you've even started. So the Porsche, Group 3 Porsche, definitely a good starter car, because it's great. It's not great at all the tracks, but it feels great.
That's great. Now I'll go to some of the chat comments. Okay. So we'll see how we go. Now, Mew79 has said, Nigel Mansell set a very high bar, though, because one of the jokes was from Anders Park saying, yes, you want to be great at racing, it's all in the mustache. And so that was the whole thing. And I jokingly said, I can't grow a mustache, and it's true, it just looks rough. So,
does that mean Moo's going to grow a mustache for us?
Well, I suppose we'll have to see. It was now,
maybe Sean, in a couple of years, Moo. Couple of years.
That was the thing. Sean has said I would make a great Scottish and Mexican mafia if I could grow a mustache. Well, maybe. That's the thing. Are we heading for the border?
Okay.
Hey, you can only laugh.
Yeah. We'll get you one of those big sombreros, Hugh. Yeah.
That's it.
Be one of the three Caballeros.
Well, I have been to Chiquitos, and I almost walked out with the hat by accident.
Okay.
So that was that was about as Mexican as I've been. Oh, to be fair, I've been to Mexico many years back. I did go to Mexico, to be fair. I had a great time. But here we are. So, in terms of what everyone is saying, Mew Mew has said he will package it to me if he grows one. Well, I might need that, but we'll see how it goes. Now, what's been your best results going back to sim racing? Your best results so far in the games that you've been playing?
FIA wise on Gran Turismo, I managed to get pole position at the Nürburgring once. Unfortunately, I was shunted off at the first corner and ended up coming in last.
Oh, no.
But that was a memorable one. I guess when I went from B to A, it was Spa Group 4, and I think I was driving the GTR, and I just found a really nice rhythm with it. And I think I accrued 5,000 or 6,000 BR points in a day. And I remember being absolutely chuffed to bits when I got to my A rank. I remember I went in Keith's chat and I was like, "Oh, I'm A rank," getting all excited. But that's Gran Turismo wise. That was probably my biggest achievement. ACC, it's a hard one. I've not been playing the game very long, seriously anyway, so I haven't really achieved anything major. I haven't been able to get into any of the top 6 in ACC yet because the competition is so fierce and people are so fast. The jury's out on ACC for the time being. Not going to toot my horn because there's nothing to toot about at the moment.
That's a good phrase. But yeah, because I mean, you did a very good time about a month ago back at Brands Hatch in the Ferrari. And I even tried to do a recording of a video to say, right, you've done that 124, I think it was. Was it 124 or 4 or 124 6, something like that? In
124 something, yeah.
Yeah, in Brands Hatch. And I couldn't get, I tried it again the other day in the Ferrari, and I think I got a 126.1. I thought I could probably get maybe a mid 25, but I didn't really have many settings. I'd only just changed the steering ratio and a little bit of traction control. I turned that down a bit. But yeah, so I need to learn how to get all the setups. How that all works. Because in terms of that, do the setups make a huge difference when you race in ACC?
I'm not sure at the moment. I spent quite a bit of money on setups, not going to lie, and I've tried out a hell of a lot of them. Coach Dave setups are really good. Might give you a half a second maybe. I think they're worth giving a go. They certainly give you an idea of a base to work from in ACC. I've had a few of Dalkin's setups, who's one of the top players on ACC, and I can honestly say that his setups in the Ferrari are amazing. But I think a lot of it depends on how you're performing that day. Obviously, some days you'll pick up the game and you'll play it, and you were doing 118s, 124s at Brands Hatch the day before, and you can barely do it at 126 today. So sometimes it's like, oh, this setup feels amazing, but I think a lot of it is how you're driving on the day, really. It's marginal, very marginal. I'd say 0.5, maybe a second. No,
it's good to know. Now, we've got a question here from Sean. So, moving from pad to wheel, has it given you the urge to do this in real life when things return back to normal, like proper track days and things like that?
If I could drive a car, Sean, I'd love to, but unfortunately I can't. I don't even have a driving license.
All right. Was there any particular reason why you didn't want to get a license, or was it just...
I lived in, it's a bit of a poor excuse, but I lived in central London all my life and never really felt the need to drive a car. I had a bicycle. I was train and bus man most of my life, so I never bothered. The only time I've ever driven a car is my dad used to be a track maintenance man at Brooklands back in the very early 80s. So I used to go down there on a weekend and just hang out with him. And I actually have a photo of me somewhere standing on my dad's lap in his old Cortina driving on the banking at Brooklands. So that's the only time I've ever driven a car.
Yeah, no, I was there in March because they've done it up and now Mercedes owns the whole thing. And it's a great day out. It's fantastic. The site down there. You can do track days that they have, and they've got a big simulator centre as well.
Okay.
It's a fantastic day out. I actually won it in a competition when I did a reasonable lap on a sim, a fleet driving day, which was quite fun. So it's it's well worth going along and doing that. But I know now, actually, to be fair, now that you've played all these games, they do a little bit of sim. You know, the first bit's all theory, isn't it? So it's kind of, you have to watch a program or a kind of simulation and spot all the hazards. So you'd probably find that you'd be quite natural then when you get into the car. Because places like BSM, they used to have a cutout of an old Vauxhall Corsa. And that was kind of the first simulators, really. That was 20 years ago and more. And they were pretty terrible. It was like an big old TV set. And then they had 3 of them put together. And then that was your kind of interior of a Corsa. And then you could drive the car around this town. But it was, and not only that, it was quite expensive. And it was almost as expensive as getting a lesson as it was to drive this cutout of a Corsa. It had probably been shunted by another driver, and that's why they couldn't use it anymore. But so they just made it into a game. But no, it was quite a thing. But I'll go and look at these comments that we've got and the questions. And Anders Pack has said, on a closed track, you don't need a license, at least here in Sweden. Fairly sure it's the same all over the world. Okay. It might be the case. I know that some of them.
What racing car owner would allow a 42-year-old guy to race his car around a track who didn't have a license? Not many. I tell you now, if I did it at Brands Hatch, I'd probably go off at Paddock Hill and write his entire car off. So it's probably not a good idea.
No, that's the thing. It's when you're in the doing your kind of F3, you say, "Oh, I'll drive one of these single seaters for a day," and you say, "Where's the clutch?" And at that point, they turn off the engine very quickly. But no, I mean, track days are great fun, and I think now, especially once things start to return to normal, I think everybody will be wanting to try and get out and have a go. But I think it was quite interesting is that when a lot of sim racers that I've interviewed is that, yes, they have this huge passion for motorsport. And what sim racing has allowed them to do is really to enjoy that even more. Because maybe they've felt over the last few years that it's been harder and it is expensive to go to motor racing and big days out like that. And they kind of feel maybe it's harder to do it. So actually having these games has been a wonderful kind of escape to kind of experience what it's like to race. And but people like David Perel saying actually played Gran Turismo for 90 minutes, and that's the best way to practice if you are going to race. Then it's probably going to help maybe to stir up a bigger passion for motorsport, and hopefully more people will get involved. Do you think there's a bit of a link there that if you start out racing on sims that you might be tempted to go into real racing?
I would hope so, yeah, because I think a lot of the, not so much people my age, but the youngsters now coming through that want to be motor racing drivers. I think that there would hopefully the sim racing would create an avenue for them to be able to go in to motor racing. I mean, we've seen it happen a few times. I mean, Igor Fraga is a perfect example. I think he made the transition from sim racing to actual racing. I think it was that way around, So hopefully sim racing will be part of the recruitment process now for youngsters who want a career in motor racing, and it opens it up to everybody as well, which is another good thing. It can be expensive if you want to go down the Fanatec route. It can be expensive if you want to buy a PC, but I've had a lot of hobbies in my life, Hugh, and none of them are cheap. If you're that way inclined and you're that passionate about it, you're going to spend that money to get yourself where you want to be. So, I mean, 300 quid for a bog standard wheel it's not a massive investment. If you're young, pester your parents until they buy you one. Because if it's what you want to do, it could be a great in for you to get into racing proper,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, my son, who's only 7, I gave him a go. I had to get him as many cushions as I could get in the house, and so he could actually sit on the seat. But he actually managed to go around Brands Hatch for a few laps without crashing, and that was in a Ford F-150 pickup. Well, that's quite an easy car to drive. And he was actually kind of looking through the steering wheel to the screen, so you could actually see what he was doing. But he made it, and he was using the pedals, and I thought I'd just love to get him to do a bit more of that. because it does help him to learn the basics of driving. When you take him in a fairly basic car, and obviously he didn't know Brands Hatch as well. I put him on the Indy circuit, and it wasn't long before he was actually going around with it, was staying on the track, no problem, and quite enjoying it. So it definitely helps. That no, it is quite a thing. Now we've got a few questions here. I'll just quickly go. Oh, yeah, Jimmy Broadbent has just signed his first racing contract, I think, with RL Racing. So he's going to be, I think it's in the Brit Car series he's going to be racing in, which is great. And of course, Super GT has driven a McLaren GT3 car at the Top Gear test track. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and quite a few of the others have. I know, like the guy who does Seen Through Glass, which is it's quite a good channel, and he tends to get a lot of supercars. And they invited him to drive a Renault Formula One car from, I think, was it the 2012 season? It was slightly detuned at Paul Ricard. But I think for a lot of us who stream, that's our dream, Yeah, please, Renault, come and pick us. And
yeah,
we'll get Fat Man in a cheap Renault. Cheap Renault. But we'll have to see what would be your kind of dream kind of plan for going into racing if you were to do that.
My dream plan for going into racing. Wow. What, via the sim route, do you mean?
Yeah, if you were sim racing, what would be, and then you could choose a real racing category, what would it be?
Oh, okay. I'd like GT3 all day long. Love it. I'd love to even sit in the passenger seat and go around and have a few laps. It'd be fantastic. But it would be GT3 all day long. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever seen any of the kind of Blancpain races that they do?
I have, yes. Not a lot. I haven't watched it a lot. Obviously, fairly new to sim racing, so wasn't overly aware of the existence of GT3 and GT4, the Blancpain series before then. But I have watched a few of the races. Yeah, they're great, fantastic. I love the cars.
Yeah, they are pretty good. I think, and they're noisy as well. I saw it when David Perel was there coming up 2 years ago in May at Silverstone, and that was a fantastic race, a 3-hour race that they did there. And it's a noise because they're quite noisy, and it's good fun. Especially the Audi R8s, they were quite good to watch, and then of course the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and all of that, and we were at a really good point to watch as they come into the kind of complex. So yeah, no, it is quite fun to keep up with them all. Now we've got some great comments here. Now we've got Jack Balding Racing, who is a go-karter, and he was saying that he got a new go-kart for his Christmas, but he hasn't been able to drive it yet because of all these COVID restrictions. Well, hopefully you'll be able to get into it and show them all what you're made of and win some championships this year, Jack. I'm sure that we won't put the pressure on, but that's what we're expecting.
Yeah.
But certainly I'm sure you'll do well with that. Now, there is a question here from Sean. It says, does Mike know what Ladylike Phone 7 is?
Ladylike Phone 7 was, I believe, someone's PSN handle in a stream a few weeks ago. Is that right? I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah.
That might be on a Super GT video. I wonder if it was did he mention it in one of those? I'm trying to remember. I think that rings a bell.
I think it was someone just came in spamming. I think it was Key 25's chat with Ladylike Phone 7 over and over and over and over and over again. And I think it's just embedded in our brains now. I think, well, Sean's especially.
Sean said it was one of those you had to be there moments.
Yes, definitely.
It's like trying to explain the joke to your children or your wife, isn't it? When she doesn't get it.
Tougher questions, please, Sean. Tougher questions.
Have you ever done go-karting?
Yes.
Mike? And how did you get on with that?
Awful. It was. I'll tell you the reason why. It wasn't because I was a bad driver. I organised my best mate's stag do in Amsterdam. And one of the activities I had planned for the weekend was go-karting. And I think we were all a little bit worse for wear. I loved it. I came first of the non-drivers. We completely wiped the floor with the guys who actually drove cars in real life. But yeah, top of the non-drivers that day.
That's pretty good going. Yeah. I always remember I went to the Daytona Raceway. The one, what's the one in London? And so it was in White City. in London.
Okay,
I think it was Daytona Cars. It was a really good one. They had a big huge indoor circuit, and I went there with my brother. And at that time, I was a lot thinner. I was a lot fitter. And my brother was very fit. And he gave me these 2 cans of Red Bull and said, right, drink these because it'll be really warm in there and you'll need to keep your concentration up. And I never, ever drank a Red Bull before. I'm a teetotal guy, so I don't drink at all. So I got this, I drank them and it tasted like, well, it's pretty awful stuff. But I thought, well, if it helps, it helps. And so I was totally wired for the whole time. And the thing was, we'd had a really good run getting through the heats. And then I said to him, my brother was on pole position and I was on 6th, the last, I was like 8th on the grid or something, because they always randomized the grids. For you had about 4 qualifying races. And I remember saying, like, we need to have some team orders. And they had a big hairpin at the first corner. It was like the first as you came into. And I said, if you go around that corner and when you get round to the middle, just brake, just slow right down. And that will bunch everybody up. And then I'll be at the back and I'll try and come round the outside and get through. And my sister took this great black and white picture of us talking on the pit wall as we were kind of planning our move. Yeah. And to my amazement, he did it. He went round the first corner, he slowed right down, everyone bunched right up, and I went round the outside and got the lead and won the race.
Oh, wow.
And so it was totally dodgy. I mean, completely fun, you know. But it was fun. And then in the end, I actually won the whole competition for that day for the arrive and drive. But I think I couldn't sleep for about 2 days because I had all this Red Bull and that. So I was the caffeine was something else, you know, and it was a boiling hot London summer's day. And I
think if I went back and did go-karting now, I think with all the sim racing experience I have had, I think I'll be a lot better now. You know, I've learned a lot more in the last 2 years than I ever had before. So yeah, I think I'd be a force to contend with now if I was to go-kart.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is that you definitely get better when you do lots of sim racing. I think it helps you with your lines, doesn't it, in the way that you drive. It was like what Gaz was saying last week. He's very good at go-karts on GT Sport. And it's always you just get the bits that you're really strong at, and also we've got the courage of saying we play racing games, so we're able to know that we can compete with the best. Now, Stephen Scott has got a question for you. It's a hard question. If someone threw a comb or a hairbrush in the middle of you guys, would there be a fight?
If someone threw a comb or a hairbrush, well, I wouldn't go. Why would I need to fight someone through a comb or a hairbrush? No point. I'd sit back and watch them fight over it.
That'd be the thing. Sean has said, I'd probably section you for throwing that in the middle of us, to be honest. That was the one that... and here's another one for you from Sean. Tell Mike to give us a tune on that mini piano that you've got there in the background.
Unfortunately, it's not plugged in.
Oh, well, that's all right. Now, here's a more serious question from the Sim Hub. Where does Mike see himself in 5 years' time with his sim racing journey?
I'd like to, short-term plans, I'd like to upgrade to some Fanatec gear in the next year. I've just started doing some live streams of Assetto Corsa Competizione on my YouTube channel. At the moment, I'm not entirely sure how far I want to take the YouTube channel. I've been thinking about maybe having this on the screen so you can see me driving and my reactions, and I can talk to people. I'm 50-50 about that at the moment. I'd like to grow my channel a little bit. I mean, I certainly, I'm not looking at the dizzy heights of Super GT or Rory or Ollie or Key or any of those. But yeah, as long as I'm still around and I'm still enjoying it in 5 years' time, I think I'd be happy enough with that. Really, just to be able to compete at a reasonably high level is enough for me. I don't have to win. In 350 odd races on Gran Turismo, I won 15 of those, but it was still great fun. So yeah, I hopefully still playing it with some better gear. Actually have a proper rig instead of a dining chair here. A nicer wheel. I've got some load cell pedals, which are great. But I think it's a no-brainer. I'll be upgrading to Fanatec in a year or so, maybe even sooner. We'll see. But yeah, modest plans. Nothing on a grand scale. obviously one of the best parts of the sim racing community is the people. So I hope to still be talking to loads of the people that I talk to on a daily basis still as well. You know, that's a very important part of it.
Yeah, I know it is great fun. It's part of the kind of camaraderie. It's almost like I was thinking now we're not allowed to go to the pub, and hopefully in the future I'm sure we will be able to go back again. But it's kind of like meeting your mates at a pub, isn't it? You know, is that you're all kind of talking about the things that you like, and it may not be the football now; it's about the racing, which is quite different and it's good fun. And these communities have allowed us to be able to do that, which is fantastic. And you miss not being part of it.
Absolutely,
which is something, you know. It's we made a lot of new friends and great friends on this, which is really, really good. Now, Mew79 has said, Mike, who is your favorite streamer and why?
Easy answer. Key25, without a doubt. Best community on YouTube. Love the guy's passion, love his honesty. He made me moderator, so I kind of have to say him anyway, really, don't I? But yeah, definitely Key25. Hugh as well, can't forget Hugh as well. Moo, you've got a great channel as well. I like Rory, I watch Ollie, Dalkin Jardier, there's loads. Tidney, can't forget Tidney as well. Deadeye Del Boy.
Yes, I never heard of him till yesterday. It was Wumble Leader that told me about Deadeye Del Boy. So hopefully we'll try and get in touch with him.
Yes.
But that would be good. And just for a quick moment, as we were talking about what's coming up, tomorrow night we have Riley Phillips at 9 o'clock. That's UK time, and he is a go-kart champion, and he's also a real racing driver as well, and he builds sim rigs, and he's just 18 years old. So he'll be coming on tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. And as for next Monday, we will have a gaming stream with Fat Man and a Cheap Sim, which is me trying to race and try not to swear when I get lots of penalties and all sorts of everything else. But
we changed your slogan.
Yeah. We'll be trying to win the race at the first corner. But no, that's what will be happening next week. And as of in a week today, we don't have a guest, so we'll see if we can fill that gap by a week's time. That would be a lot of fun, certainly. Now we were talking about the communities and things like that. Now you said you're a big fan of Key25. Because he's been around quite a while, and just a few weeks ago he deleted Gran Turismo, didn't he? He's kind of had enough, and then I think he downloaded it after that, whatever. But what was it like to witness that? Because that really stirred quite a few people in the Gran Turismo community.
I've been watching Key for a couple of years now. Doesn't surprise me. I've been there myself. I mean, I haven't gone to the lengths of I would actually delete the game. I've certainly felt like deleting it and throwing it out the window a few times. I mean, Key does it for a living. So, I mean, I'm not sure. This is why I said to you, I'm not sure how far I want to take my YouTube channel, because I don't want to blur the lines between fun and work. If I had to play Gran Turismo every day for work, I would probably end up as stressed out with it as Key is with it at the moment. I think everybody that streams Gran Turismo on YouTube gets just as wound up as Key does. It's just that they will probably not show the emotion or the rage that Key shows on his stream. But some people don't like it, and that's fine. You don't have to watch it. You can go and watch something else. There's 1,000,001 streamers on YouTube doing similar things. But yeah, it didn't surprise me that he did it. I mean, I was quite happy that he did it, because I've been bugging him for months to play ACC. So once Gran Turismo was out of the way, that's a massive obstacle for me, because I'm going to get to watch what I want.
He's good. He is very, very good. In fact, if you're in touch with him, tell him it would be great to get him back on the show. I know he said he would, but it'd be fantastic to get him back on, because it was nearly 2 years ago, actually, the last time we had him on the show. So that's the thing. And for people who are joining us for the first time tonight, you're watching the Car Sim and Race Driver show on the Hugh Hatrick channel. And if you love sim interviews, we've got a huge catalogue of a wide and varied range of sim racers from Super GT and Rory to Mike here today, and we've had Mew Mew 79. We've had so many I can hardly list them all, but they're all in the catalogue on our channel. So you'd be welcome to hit that subscribe button and go and see some of those videos later on. But so what do you think in closing just now here, Mike? What's your kind of favourite thing about ACC at the moment? And is there anything you're particularly looking forward to as the games develop this year?
I'm really enjoying the sim grid races, the daily races. I think that's David Perel's idea. The sim grid races, they're really good. I'm enjoying actually having some competition ranking races on there, because the PlayStation version never worked properly. So it's nice to actually compete in some competition server races where I can actually gain some points from it. At the moment, I'm still getting used to the PC version. It's not massively different from the PS4. Obviously, it has the graphics are better, the frame rate's better, the overall experience is obviously a lot better, but a lot more competition. So I suppose the thing I love the most at the moment is the challenge to get myself up to the level of some of the top drivers. That's the next challenge. You know.
So what's the key for getting your SA rating up in ACC? Because I'm out at like 58. It seems to take an age. I do a race and I'm lucky if I get 1 point at the end of it. Is there a key to getting more SA points and getting your competition levels a bit better?
Yeah. With regards to SA, you can gain the first 50 or 60 SA quite easily by driving around with the AI. Drive within half a second, excuse me, of the AI. Drive alongside cars. Just basically drive close to the AI to gain points. But like I said, once you get to about 60, it starts going up very slowly. So you might find that you have to do 2 or 3 clean laps driving very close to other drivers to gain even 1 SA point. I mean, 70 will get you into the competition server, I believe. That's PS4. But that's the way to do it. Just try and have the skill level of the AI at 100, put the aggressiveness to about 90. I think that may help to boost your numbers a bit quicker. But yeah, just drive clean and try not to crash, Hugh.
Yeah, I was going to say I could tell that one was coming, which is a lot harder on ACC than it seems. And hit one dodgy curb or even just the marbles, and then it can take you off the track quite easily. You've really got to concentrate on those games. But no, I think that's what makes it so much fun, though, because you know what, it's hard and it needs to be hard.
Yes.
To make it kind of work properly. Because then when it comes off well, it is something. So how do you find, when you do these big races, I always like the comment that comes through from your engineer. It says, watch out, your tires are cold, stay off the curbs. It's so hard to do that when you start a race on a set of course the competition. What's your tactics of getting those tires warmed up and avoiding the problems?
Depends on the settings for the race. If you're doing a competition server race, you'll do a full formation lap before you actually start. If you do a lobby race, more often than not, you'll probably start on the last corner. You'll turn the corner and you'll be on the start finish straight, and you will begin within 15 seconds. So you've got a lot smaller window to get your brakes and your tires up to temperature. So it's a lot harder when you've got a very small start. So I would ride the brakes for as much as you can. Try and not to overcook the brakes. But obviously, with a full formation lap in the CP races, you can weave, you can ride the brakes, you can accelerate brake. So you've not really got much of a problem to get your tires up to the temperature on a full lap. On a very short start, it's difficult. You're just going to have to hope that everyone else around you is going to drive sensibly on lap 1, which I find in ACC they do more often than not. Gran Turismo, you get a lot of dive bombers at turn 1. You do get that on ACC, but I find the higher up your SA gets, the more respectful the people are around you. I mean, accidents happen, obviously, but it happens less and less.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, because I did the race at Silverstone, an online race, and it was great fun actually. And the first time I got slightly caught out, because although it was the first lap and the first corner, I went a bit. Well, I went at a speed I thought I could quite easily handle, and I managed to go onto the curb, and the car did actually stick. But I was amazed at how many people I was able to overtake. The only problem was I was quite slow coming off the curbs, so a few of them got past me again as we went up the next straight. But it was quite good. But thankfully, I didn't hit anyone, because that's the thing. Quite often, if you're going too fast and you go into curbs when the tires are cold, you tend just to spin off, and it can be quite dramatic. But it's good. The only thing I kind of feel slightly annoyed about when you do an online multiplayer race in ACC, if you do even get on the podium, it doesn't always take you to the podium. You know, when you finish when you cross the checkered flag, there's no podium celebration. It just takes you back to the pits, and then you start the next lobby. Is that something you would like to see changed, or is there anything that kind of bugs you about that game?
I have seen a podium sequence somewhere.
I
know what you mean. It doesn't appear very often, but I have seen it. I'll be honest with you, I'm not that overly bothered about having it. I think just having a P1, 2, or 3 is good enough. I wouldn't want it to go too far towards the arcade route, if I'm honest. The way it is at the moment, it does work. Yeah, it's a bit no frills when you finish a race, but I don't know. No, I'm not bothered either way with that one, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, it's been great to hear all of your sim racing story and all of your tips and secrets for getting good lap times, and also your favorite racing cars and the games that you enjoy. And your community here has been absolutely amazing tonight. I'm sure they'll be really pleased because they've been able to ask you some good questions, and we've had a lot of fun and a lot of good jokes. There have been so many comments there, I can hardly keep up with them all. But we really appreciate everybody coming on tonight and watching Mike doing his interview. And he's a great guy. He's a fantastic guy. And I only have one question. You need to send me those set up for your Ferrari so I can have a go at Brands Hatch.
Yes.
And that would be super. Send me a few screenshots or something so I have an idea, or a list of settings. That would be absolutely fantastic. Now, our final question is always from Nielinski, and very appropriately, he has put his question there. And it is, of course, would you prefer to fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
I hate these questions. Let's go with the second one. Let's go with 100 duck-sized horses.
You want a 12-bore like I offered Womble Leader yesterday?
Yeah,
so you can shoot them down.
I'll set my dog on them.
When are we interviewing Sean? Says Jack Baldwin Racing. Well, we'll have to arrange that. I'm sure we can arrange that.
Get your bleep machine ready, I would imagine.
Is it? It's one opportunity. Well, no, it's been absolutely fantastic. Well, stay on the line at the moment as we close the show. But to everyone who's been watching, make sure you tune in tomorrow because we've got Riley Phillips on at 9 o'clock, and that should be a fantastic interview as well. But it's been great to have all the camaraderie, all the jokes, all the fun and the questions we've had tonight. So, as we say, in fact, I'm going to hand it over to Mike here. You can say our special phrase.
Drive fast and try not to crash.
And you'll win the race at the first corner. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you very soon. Bye just now.